Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public session of the Board of Trustees meeting of the Halton District School Board on June 3rd, 2025. I am chairing tonight's meeting as Chair Collard is joining us online. I would like to welcome all of our guests joining us tonight. Thank you for coming. Please be advised that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the hdsb.ca and on the HDSB YouTube channel. We will begin by taking roll call. Trustee Ahmed. I see that Trustee Ahmed is joining us online. Trustee Amos.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Trustee Baxter.
Good evening.
Trustee Bryden.
Good evening.
Chair Collard.
Good evening.
Trustee Daniele.
Thank you, I am here.
Trustee Gray.
Hello.
Trustee Rocha and Horn sent their regrets. And Trustee Zhang.
Good evening.
And we have student trustees, Ho.
Good evening.
And student trustee Ochu.
Good evening.
Good evening. Director Ennis, can you tell us who is in attendance from staff tonight?
Good evening, and thank you so much, Vice Chair Oliver. In attendance this afternoon, we have a full complement of staff to support tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Tonight, student trustee Ho will be honoring the land.
We begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us with life. This land upon which HDSB is situated is on the ancestral, treaty, and tidal lands of the Anishinaabe Ojibwe Mississauga Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Mississauga territory in the past and present continue to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HDSB is committed to continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties and responsibilities, and Indigenous rights while actively maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for the land.
Thank you. We will move on to the approval of the agenda. Trustee Gray, would you like to move a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay. Let's all, sorry, I forgot to remind people to log into Crestron. Okay. You can now vote on the approval of the agenda. Oh, sorry. Yes. Trustee Bryden, would you like to second the motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Is the topic set for a vote? Okay. By show of hands, all in favor of approval of tonight's agenda? Thank you very much. That is approved. Okay, as I am filling in for Chair Collard tonight, we need to appoint a trustee to fill in for the vice chair at tonight's meeting. And as Trustee Amos has volunteered for this, I will put the motion on the floor that the Board of Trustees appoint Kelly Amos to serve in the capacity of Vice Chair pro tempore for the June 3rd, 2025 board meeting. Trustee Daniele, would you like to move this motion?
I will happily move it.
And Trustee Bryden, would you like to second this motion?
Yes, it would.
Are there any objections to this motion? Seeing none, that carries unanimously. And I invite Trustee Amos up to the front. All right, in relation to our agenda this evening, are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? Seeing none, we will move on to presentations tonight. And I invite Trustee Gray to introduce our Inspire Award recipients. As the recipient's name is called, I invite them to come to the center of the room, and I welcome their guests to take photos as they wish.
Thank you very much. The Halton District School Board recognizes students, staff, and volunteers from across the system who have gone above and beyond to support students in the HDSB and whose actions will have a lasting and positive impact on others. The Inspire Awards reflect the board's commitment to equity and are inclusive of all stakeholders. Tonight, we recognize 9 recipients, 3 of whom are with us in attendance this evening. I'd like to call upon Andrea Gill to be our first recipient, met in the middle here by Trustee Kelly Amos. And photographers, please, you can come into the section here. In her first year as principal, Andrea has brought extraordinary energy, vision, and heart to the Montclair school community. She inspires both staff and students daily with her unwavering commitment to creating an inclusive, supportive, and welcoming learning and working environment. Andrea leads by example, always listening and encouraging. She has empowered our team to grow together. From organizing meaningful professional development opportunities to supporting collaboration among staff, she has reinforced the school motto, learning with care, at every level. Andrea's dedication ensures Montclair Public School remains a place where everyone feels valued and motivated. Her leadership supports students to thrive in their academic pursuits and brings a genuine sense of joy to the school community. Andrea models compassion and integrity, and the positive tone she sets resonates throughout the entire school. Congratulations, Andrea. And now I'd like to call Sarah Newman, also from Montclair, to front and center. And photographers, please follow along. Sarah has been an extraordinary source of support and care for a student at Montclair who upon arrival had no educational assistant and was struggling. At the time, Sarah was responsible for another child, but she took it upon herself to include the new student in shared activities. This act of kindness changed that student's trajectory. In a space where he felt isolated, Sarah became a steady and compassionate presence, cooking with him, walking with him, often during her own downtime, and giving him the gift of connection and belonging. Eventually, Sarah was officially assigned to support him, and her ongoing guidance has helped him become a more active participant in the school community. Sarah's work extends far beyond one student. She actively promotes inclusion, kindness, and empathy throughout the entire school. Her impact is lasting, and her presence in the school community is nothing short of transformative. Congratulations, Sarah. And now I'd like to call Chris Callahan to front and center. Chris is an educational assistant at Hawthorne Village Public School, and I'm going to ask Trustee Bryden to join Chris in the front middle here. Chris has been a devoted educational assistant with the Halton District School Board for over 37 years, and her impact is deeply felt across the entire school community. Since the opening of Hawthorne Village, Chris has supported generations of students with unwavering kindness, energy, and expertise. Every day she arrives with a smile, a spring in her step, and a boundless enthusiasm that fills the halls. Her knowledge and experience in supporting students is invaluable, and the skills she helps them develop are ones they carry far beyond the classroom. Chris's approach is rooted in care and dedication, celebrating student progress with high fives, big smiles, and personal messages to families and staff. Beyond her exceptional work with students, Chris is also a strong leader within the school, serving as the health and safety representative, ensuring that a safe learning and working environment exists for all. She builds meaningful relationships with families, creating trust throughout her consistency and compassion. Her ability to meet students where they are, encourage growth, and build confidence is a gift. Her smile is infectious, her presence comforting, and her contributions are immeasurable. Congratulations, Chris. Now, in addition to these three Inspire Award winners, we have awards going to Sarah Hutton, Nicole Kana, Laura Christensen, Paula Ustiok, and Tanya Vardy. Congratulations go to all of these Inspire Award recipients who will receive their awards in their respective schools or work settings. Thank you very much to all the recipients this evening for supporting and promoting student achievement and well-being in the Halton District School Board. For everyone watching this evening, please continue to nominate people or organizations who support students in their achievements in the HDSB. For more information, search out Inspire Awards on the HDSB website. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Trustee Gray, and congratulations to all of our Inspire Award recipients. We will now move on to agenda item 3.3, and that is a student trustee report. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, staff, superintendents, and trustees. I'm Trustee Ochu.
And I'm Trustee Ho.
And today we're bringing you the student trustee report for the June 3rd board meeting.
From May 22nd to May 25th, Trustee Ochu and incoming Trustee Shu and I attended the Ontario Student Trustees Association annual general meeting. We were able to connect with many other student trustees from school boards across Ontario and took away so much information that we plan to put into use during the 2025 to 2026 school year. Trustee Ochu, incoming Trustee Shu, and I attended many different sessions themed around many different interests in advocacy, and even attended their OSTA Gala, in which we reunited with our mentors, Trustee Shribala and Trustee Alimzanoff.
On May 14th, Trustee Ho and I held our monthly Student Senate meeting in person in Milton, which lasted from 6 o'clock to 8:30 p.m. The theme of the May 14th Student Senate meeting was, once again, the Halton Youth Leadership Symposium. The Senate meeting didn't feature a guest speaker, but rather another extended work period where senators used to wrap up their Halton Youth Leadership Symposium workshops. The May Senate meeting also featured the new Student Senate Subcommittee Terms of Reference and the Student Senate Constitution revamp made by Trustee Ho and I's trustee mentors and Chair and Vice Chair of the Board, Trustee Collard and Trustee Oliver. After the pizza break, the senators began putting the cherries on top of their Halton Youth Leadership Symposium workshops.
And through the month of May, Trustee Ochu, our staff advisors, our Director of Operations, student senators, and I have been working on the upcoming Halton Youth Leadership Symposium, which took place on Thursday, May 29th. The Halton Youth Leadership Symposium is an entirely student-run conference where attendees learn skills from successful leaders and engage in meaningful conversations with like-minded youth. This day featured entertaining yet informative workshops made by student senators, a keynote speaker, and some delicious pizza, all themed around finding your spark.
The day itself went incredibly well. The event began with a land acknowledgement delivered in French by Trustee Ho and a reflection delivered by myself. Then Director Ennis gave a quick address to the attendees where he got them excited about finding their spark. Our Directors of Operations presented the event schedule and invited the keynote speaker, David Vanderberg, to give an address themed around following the flickers. Then the attendees were off to their workshops. The Halton Youth Leadership Symposium featured a Guess the Amount of Candy in the Jar event during the pizza break, which Director Ennis himself participated in. The students invited all enjoyed their workshops and left very happy.
This past month has been incredibly busy for the Student Senate, Trustee Ochu, our Director of Operations, and myself. We are happy to say that this year has been great for Student Senate and our students in the Halton District School Board.
That concludes our student trustee report for the June 3rd, 2025 board meeting.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move to the announcement of the 2025-26 Student Trustee Report. And I will pass the gavel as I would like to participate in this discussion.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your report, and we'll have any questions after. So, the motion for regarding the student trustee election is be it resolved that the Halton District School Board accept the student trustee election results of February the 20th, 2025 and approve the appointment of Caitlin Howe and Jay Yu as student trustees for the Halton District School Board 2025-2026 school year, term effective August 1st, 2025. Vice Chair Oliver, would you like to move this?
Thank you. I'll move the motion.
Thank you. And Chair Collard, would you like to second it?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Next topic. Is everyone signed into Creston? Okay. Please vote. Those online? They both, okay. So who's missing? Okay, so that passes unanimously. I would like to congratulate next year's student senate or student trustees, and I know that Trustee Howe will be a great liaison because she's already done it for a year, and I know you're also going to do more amazing things, so congratulations. So, did you want to say anything?
Thank you. I would like to introduce student trustee-elect Jay Shu, who's seated in our boardroom gallery, to the Board of Trustees. Welcome, Jay, and we look forward to working with you in September.
Congratulations. So, are there any questions on the student trustee report for the student trustees? Well, thank you once again for always an amazing report, which is always a highlight of our board meeting, so thank you. I will pass the gavel back to Vice Chair Oliver.
We are now on to the consent agenda. And for the approval, there are minutes of our board meeting from May 6, 2025. And for receipt, we have information items, and that's outstanding action items, board report schedule, policies and governance procedure review schedule, approved minutes of the Committee of the Whole from April 22nd, Human Rights and Equity Advisory Committee update, and 2025-26 annual school hour report. I'll put the motion on the floor. Be it resolved that the board approve the consent agenda action and information items as listed on the June 3rd, 2025 Board of Trustees meeting agenda. Trustee Baxter, would you like to move the motion to deal with this consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like to move the motion and also pull an item when we get there, please.
Okay, which item would you like to pull?
4.2.5, Human Rights and Equity Advisory Committee update.
Okay, thank you. Any other items to be pulled? Yes, Trustee Amos.
I'd like to pull the bell hour report.
School hour report?
School hour report.
Okay, so let's deal with them in order, and that's 4.2.5, the Human Rights and Equity Advisory Committee Update Report 25059, and that's with, oh, sorry, I need to get a seconder first. Trustee Bryden, would you like to second that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll deal with that in order. And Superintendent Petco, report 25059. You may proceed with your questions, Trustee Baxter.
Okay, thank you through the chair to Superintendent Petco. So as you know, I have the privilege of sitting on the Human Rights and Equity Advisory Committee, and I was present for the conversation and the, review and presentation of the new multi-year strategic plan. It was a great conversation. We have a fantastic committee, very engaged members, and as is written in the report, there was a lot of positive comments about what is in our strategic plan, and a real emphasis from the committee as a whole and many members about accountability. So they were really looking for accountability from us as trustees in our role in oversight and holding staff to account for how the board sees outcomes. So I just had a question continuing on from what people were asking at the committee. The last monitoring report that we had to board had a lot of information on the actions that are being taken to train staff and monitor incidents, but it was a bit light on outcome data to evaluate effectiveness that supports trustees in that accountability role, which as is included in the report has been identified as something that's very important. I'm just wondering if we will be expecting to see more outcome data in the next school year, for example, sharing how initiatives have impacted things like students' credit accumulation, graduation rates, information on the types of systemic discrimination that has been identified, and if any in our board, and how that's being addressed. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Baxter. Through you, Chair/Vice Chair Oliver. Yes, what I would like to say is that is coming. As you know, the first report was the first iteration ever. So we are working on all of those aspects, and the report will be coming sort of late fall, as you know, because the report came in late fall this year. So yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Amos.
Thank you through you to Superintendent Nagoy or the director. So thank you for the report, and thank you for, setting the bell hours for Oakville Northeast number 3 public school. My question is, I see the time is 8:50 to 3:10, and one of the things that I've been asking for many, many years is to try and maybe have the public schools earlier and the high schools later, because it makes more sense with circadian rhythms and how students learn. And I know this is probably tied into busing and what's available, but has there been any thought of actually trying to do some adjustments?
Thank you, Trustee Amos, for the question, and for the chair. The answer is yes. We are currently looking at an efficiency study for all of our regions, so together with the coterminous board. And we don't have the results back yet, but there's different scenarios we're looking at. The end goal of this efficiency study is to contain costs and optimize transportation routes. One of the scenarios is looking at flipping the times for the secondary schools to be later and the elementary schools first. For this particular year, for next year, so this particular report for September, the only change for the whole consortium is the new time for Oakville number 3, and it allows for efficiencies already. So that's why the time is what it's suggested here. Once we have that efficiency study, is going to be discussed with the HSTS board and also brought back to the respective Board of Trustees for both boards and sort of see what are some of the recommendations. So I couldn't give you an answer as to whether or not it's possible, it's feasible financially or operationally, but it is one of the scenarios we're looking at in that study.
Just to follow up, thank you for that, and I really hope that we actually, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but put students first so that secondary students actually have times that are best for them, and the elementary students who are much more active and alert earlier would be much more amenable to earlier times. I know from talking to secondary school students and to teachers that they all agree that a later time would be better, especially for like that first class. It can be very tough for students. So I see some nods over here. So I thank you for including that part of it as in the study, and I really hope that it does go forward.
I am not seeing any other speakers on the list. The motion is on the floor. And for those online, Chair Collard and Trustee Ahmed. They said yes? Okay, thank you. Trustee Gray, need to vote. Thank you, and that carries unanimously. Moving on to ratification and action items. Item 5.1.1, Tiger Jeet Singh Secondary School Boundary Alignment, Report 25061 with General Manager Ativo. And I'll read the motion. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve option 1 and establish new boundaries for Craig Kielberger Secondary School and Elsie McGill Secondary School for the English program as outlined in Board Report 25061 with an implementation date of September 2026. Trustee Ahmed, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, I will, please.
And Trustee Daniele, would you like to second that motion?
Thank you. Yes, I would.
Thank you. Over to you. Any discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, no further updates from the last presentation that was made. We have not received any further communications from the community, nor have there been any delegates. So with that, staff maintains to recommend passing this boundary change for this area just to align the graded cohorts, and it'll be implemented for September 2026. I'm happy to take any further questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this report? Seeing none, motions on the floor, we'll proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 5.1.2, and that's naming of Oakville Northeast Number 3 Public School, Report 25062, and that's with General Manager Fancy. And I'll read the motion. Okay, and that yes, that's right. Okay. There are two motions as we proceed with this. The first motion, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board consider the following names for the new school, Oakville Northeast Number 3 Public School, located at 1235 Weedboom Drive in Oakville. Alvin Duncan Public School, Chow Kwan Lee Public School, Harvest Oak Public School, Weedboom Public School. Thank you. Trustee Amos, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, please.
And Trustee Baxter, would you like to second that motion?
Yes, please.
Is there any discussion? Okay. So we will now proceed. Sorry. Okay. I will get General Manager Khan to outline the process for us. Thank you. So the vote, this motion is on the floor for you. We'll proceed to vote.
So just as a point of clarification, the first motion is just to put the four names up for consideration. They are the names that are on the report. So trustees, with this motion, just say, yes, these are the four that are going to be considered. And then after the second motion, we'll actually move to consider the names.
Oh.
Yes, she said yes.
Oh, she said yes. Okay, thank you. Sure.
So through the chair, so the four names that are listed in the report are now up for consideration. The next part in the process, as per the governance procedure, is that each trustee please email Director Ennis your one preferred name. The next step is you will email your one preferred name. However, before you do that, there will be remarks shared and comments from trustees.
Okay, thank you. So the first motion to consider all four names passes unanimously. And now I open the floor for discussion. And let's begin with the trustee representative on the school naming committee. And that is Trustee Rocha and Trustee Amos. Over to you, Kelly.
Thank you. Through you, since Trustee Rocha couldn't attend today, I wanted to share her thoughts first because the school is in her area. As the trustee for Northeast Number 3 Public School, I wanted to share my thoughts with everyone on my preferred name for the new school. I believe the school should be named Harvest Oak Public School, as that was the preferred name of the parents and students who were consulted when asked to narrow down school names to just one name. Overwhelmingly, parents and students did not want the school named after a person. That left Harvest Oak Public School and Weedboom Public School. Parents felt that the word harvest is a common occurrence across all cultures and that harvest time is associated with gratitude, community, and abundance. It also symbolizes the gathering of rewards after hard work, just like education. It evokes the idea that learning is a process that leads to meaningful results. This imagery ties in nicely with the kindness, connection, and community commitment of the multi-year strategic plan. The term oak symbolizes growth and wisdom, exactly what the school board tries to foster. It suggests a place where students grow strong minds and deep roots. In addition, Oak is a nod to the town of Oakville. I'll venture to say that this ties in nicely with the environmental and global citizenship commitment of the multi-year strategic plan. Lastly, the school, Harvest Oak, will open its doors on Wheat Bloom Drive in a community that has roads named Threshing Mill Boulevard and Granary Street, all evoking the past agricultural contributions to the economic development and growth of the town of Oakville. For all the above reasons and the wishes of parents and students in Ward 6, I kindly request for all trustees to consider naming the school Harvest Oak Public School. And that was Trustee Rocha's thoughts. I was the other trustee, a representative on the committee, and as I represent many of the students from Ward 7 who will be attending that school, I also heard similar thoughts from my community that they would prefer not to have a person's name, and I heard pros for both Harvest Oak and Wheat Bloom, but Harvest Oak came out ahead again because of the tie to Oakville, but also because of a lot of the meaning behind Harvest, just as Trustee Rocha has written. So that's what my community has said.
Thank you. This report first came to us at the Committee of the Whole, and we've heard from our two trustee reps on the committee. General Manager Francie, is there anything you'd like to add around the process and findings?
Thank you, through the chair. Just mentioned that the report was updated after a request for additional information from the May 20th Committee of the Whole meeting, and I'm happy to take any questions on that additional information. Thanks.
Are there any questions for General Manager Francie? Seeing none, I'm just going to add, Trustee Baxter.
Sorry, through the chair, I had some trouble with my technology. I'm not sure if my question is, who my question is for, but I wanted to ask about the feeling about not naming schools after people and sort of where that comes from. If there's anything that you heard in that sentiment. I understand that the preference is not to name schools after people among the people that were on this committee, but were there reasons given at all? My personal preference actually would be to name the school after Mr. Duncan, and so I'm just wondering, given connection to Oakville, community building, and that kind of thing, so I'm just wondering what the discussion was around naming schools after people and why that was not preferred. Thank you.
Through the chair, thanks for the question. So like Trustee Amos and Trustee Rocha shared in her remarks, that was certainly the sentiment of some on the committee. I can't say it was a collective decision. There were certainly differing views on the matter, of course, and as we all know, it isn't stated in the policy or the governance procedure not to name a school after a person. I do recall some of the sentiment shared just with respect to recent controversies in the media with respect to namings, primarily to do with where names are after people. That was a bit of the sentiment shared from members who didn't agree with naming a school after a person.
Yes, Trustee Amos would like to respond.
Just as General Manager Francie has said, there was support for the names, obviously, because they're on the report, but people didn't feel, they felt more strongly about the non-people names for what the school would stand for. And there was a great presentation that was given by the principal about all the things that she wants to do, and they felt that that would tie in better with those names that were coming forward. There wasn't, nobody felt a real tie to any of the people names. Like, we've had people names come forward before and people were very strongly in support of. So this time that wasn't the case. It was more a case of their preference was the non-people names.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll just share my own personal thoughts. I'm glad to hear students' strong opinions on the naming. of this school. While there are many noteworthy global citizens worthy of recognition, I do not think personally that naming a school after a person is the way to achieve that. And I would not want to be put in a position to have to decide who is more worthy or relevant. I think a nature or geography related name makes that name more inclusive and relevant for all students and staff, allowing every student to feel ownership and connection to the name. And so I personally will be supporting Harvest Oak as a name for the school. Thank you. So now we will begin our name selection. You are asked to please email Director Ennis with your number one top name preference. And those online, please forward your emails to Director Ennis with the name that you choose for the school.
Just point of order, please. Given that Trustee Rocha is not able to be with us right now at this moment, but has sent her intentions, would her intentions be able to be counted?
Go ahead, General Manager Cohen.
That is a great question. No, in order to vote, a member must be present and form part of the quorum.
Trustee Ahmed, did you submit your preference of name for the school to Director Ennis? Trustee Ahmed, can I have confirmation that you can hear us? And Student Trustee Ochu. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I'm going to submit it now. Sorry, I was doing something.
Thank you, Trustee Ahmed. School naming is always a very exciting time for trustees. And the community, of course. I can picture many excited students and staff waiting to hear what their school will be named. The vote is ready, and here are the results. Alvin Duncan was voted on by Trustee Baxter. Harvest Oak was voted on by Trustee Gray, Collard, Daniele, Zhang, Oliver, Bryden, Amos, Ahmed, and student trustees Howe and Ochu. And so Harvest Oak has so now Harvest Oak is going forward as the name to be approved. And so the motion is on the floor. Is it ready?
No.
I gotta read the motion first. Yes. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board name the new school Oakville Northeast No. 3 Public School located at 1235 Wheatboom Drive in Oakville, Harvest Oak Public School. Trustee Amos, would you like to move the motion?
It'd be my honor.
And Trustee Baxter, would you like to second that motion?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And we may now vote. And those on the okay. Oh, do you need to vote?
It's in Oak.
You need to vote, yeah. Okay, all the votes have been cast, and that name of Harvest Oak Public School carries unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you, General Manager Fancy and the School Naming Committee for all the work you've done on selecting the name for this school. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 5.1.3, and that's external audit and regional internal audit plans report 25063, and that's Trustee Daniele. And I'll put the motion on the floor. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the external audit plan and the fees of $99,370, excluding applicable taxes, attached as Appendix A, for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2025, prepared by the Board's external auditors, Deloitte LLP. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the 2025-26 Regional Internal Audit Plan, which includes a review of the business continuity plan, plus follow-up of any remaining action plans attached as Appendix B. Trustee Daniele, would you like to move that motion?
Thank you. Yes, I would.
And Trustee Bryden, would you like to second that motion?
I would, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Daniele, would you like to speak to the report?
The report is as written. I would suggest if there are any questions of any context or depth that we refer them to Superintendent of Business, Roxanne Nagoy.
Are there any questions for Superintendent Nagoy? Okay, seeing none, the motion is on the floor. We can proceed to vote. And we have, this vote carries unanimously. Thank you. On to procurement policy, report 25064 with Superintendent Nagoy. I'll put the motion on the floor. That the Board of Trustees adapt the revised procurement policy and that all prior versions be revoked. And Trustee Baxter, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, please.
And Trustee Zhang, would you like to second that motion?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Trustee Nagoy, would you like to speak to that report?
Thank you. The report is before you. It also contains the track changes, and the only change to note is the reference to local Ontario and Canadian vendors as being the preferred vendors. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Nagoy. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing, Trustee Baxter. Hang on.
Thank you. Through the chair, I had a question about one of the guiding principles. So it's 4B. The change is from non-discriminatory process to equitable process. So just a change in language. And I wanted to ask, how is equitable defined in the context of this policy?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Baxter. In terms of equitable, is just to have a fair, open, transparent communication process with all the available information on different platforms to different vendors, and that takes into account something new that we were considering is for certain businesses that don't have access to a platform, they have to pay for subscription, and making it available in different formats so that everybody can have the information to determine a submission or not. Also taking into account the scope of some of the work so that if it can be divided, then smaller suppliers can also have the opportunity to bid.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing now, we will go to vote. And that vote carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Superintendent Nagoy. And you'll stay for the next report. And that's Trustee Expense Policy and Governance Procedure, Report 25065. And I'll put the motion on the floor that the Board of Trustees adopt the revised Trustee Expense Policy and Governance Procedure and all prior versions be revoked. Trustee Bryden, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, I would.
And Trustee Zhang, would you like to second that motion?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Trustee Nagoy.
Thank you. For the chair, just
Sorry, Superintendent Nagoy.
two changes to note, thank you, is again preference being given to local Ontario and Canadian vendors and tightening the travel outside of Ontario, the rules around that. Thank you.
Any questions or comments on this? I see Chair Collard.
Sorry, I was voting.
Okay. I don't see anybody on the speakers list, so the motion's on the floor. We will now vote. Okay. And that motion carries unanimously. On to Report 25066, French as a Second Language Programs Policy. And I will put the motion on the floor. That the Board of Trustees adopt the revised French as Second Language Programs Policy and that all prior versions be revoked. Trustee Gray, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, I would.
And Trustee Bryden, would you like to second that motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Over to you, Superintendent Frankovich.
Thank you, Chair. So in addition to working with department staff, Superintendent Connor and I worked with trustees Bryden, Rocha, and Zhang from the Governance Committee to write the policy before you. And we appreciate their input and rich discussion, and we are happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you very much. And we have Trustee Bryden.
Thank you. One of our 6 commitments in this policy is to equity of access to French immersion programs, more specifically providing transportation to ensure equity of access to French immersion programs. And my question is whether in providing transportation, we sufficiently achieve equity of access. And so that would be starting to look at what's the propensity of likelihood of a student attending a French immersion program if their local school provides French immersion versus if they don't. Are we actually achieving equity of access through our transportation policy? And if not, then there may be reasons for that, and we may want to look at that. But let's take a look, first of all, of whether we are achieving equity of access, which is what our policy says. So I was wondering if staff could provide some data to understand where we're at on that front.
Through you, Chair, to Trustee Bryden. We do know that we have a greater number of FI registrations for grade 2 that come from students who are in grade 1 at the School for English Programming that also provides the French immersion programming. We believe that it's because if families do change their mind about their child's enrollment in French immersion, when they return to English programming, they have to go back to their home school. So that's a very easy transition if your home school is the school you're currently in for French immersion. So that's our belief anyways, that we feel that's why that occurs. But to your question, I could take that offline with General Manager Thibault to see. We do know that definitely the enrollment is higher, but we can look at those numbers to see where it lands.
Thank you. Any question from Trustee Zhang?
Thank you. So I have some questions that need to be clarified about the program, how we create a program. So this is French immersion program. Creating a French immersion program and decide the entry grade and the late entry or the annual renewal process. So this is based on the provincial curriculum regulation, or just this is board decision? Thank you.
In terms of programming, we do have at the board level the opportunity, and a number of years ago is when the switch was made for grade 2 being the entry point for 100% immersion. And at that time, we were looking as a board across the province around different models and landed on the current model. So we do have our entry point is grade 2 for 100% immersion.
So this is a board decision, not from the curriculum?
Yes.
Okay, so if this is a board decision, should we include that in the policy, or this is where we can find it? Because when we make some procedures, we need some principle to follow these rules, right?
Through you, Chair, to Trustee Zhang. We do have that outlined in our administrative procedure for schools, for both around minutes of instruction, periods of instruction, for both core French programming and for French immersion.
Okay, thank you.
And it's also noteworthy that when the Program Viability Committee did its review, and this was the recommendation of the board to start with a grade 2 entry point, the board also rolled out core French to start in grade 1 as opposed to waiting to grade 4, so that all students have that earlier access to French earlier on in their primary education. Okay, I don't see anybody else on the speakers list. The motion is on the floor and we can vote. Okay, and that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. On to item 5.1.7, Student Attire Policy, Report 25067 with Superintendent Fowler. And I put the motion on the floor that the Board of Trustees adopt the revised student attire policy and that all prior versions be revoked. Trustee Daniele, would you like to move that motion?
Thank you. Yes, I would.
And Trustee Gray, would you like to second that motion?
Yes, I would.
Thank you. Over to you, Superintendent Fowler.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Oliver. So the report is before you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, let's look at our speakers list. Trustee Bryden.
Thank you. In the redraft of this policy from between Committee of the Whole and here, a lot of standards were taken out of the policy name and elsewhere. Unfortunately, it also came out of the policy statement, and it says school principals, in consultation with their school council, staff, and students, shall determine student attire. I believe that should remain shall determine standards for student attire, as they are not telling students what to wear. They're telling them these are the guidelines you must follow.
Through you, Vice Chair Amos, Chair Oliver, to Trustee Bryden, I think that was a great catch. We were trying to make it, to remove the title change, so I think that one was overlooked. So I would be in agreement with the addition of the word standards in that section.
And Trustee Zhang.
Okay, thank you. In this policy guiding principle, there's one principle that allows the students to present themselves. This, for me, in my understanding, this can be easily interpreted as students do whatever they want. And this is, we can just go to check the news. In the past few years, we can check, just in Canada, we can find some student dress controversy. For example, the students wear the shorts is so short and get suspended. And also there's another student because for the religious reason to bring a knife to school. So all these things, I believe we should have a complete guiding principle to say what is appropriate for students to do in the school or something is not appropriate. And then in the future, when we make the procedures, then we can follow these principles. Because these principles, I think it is missing from this policy. Thank you.
Through you, Vice Chair Oliver, to Trustee Zhang, thank you for the comments. We do believe, and we have added a guiding principle, that students have a right to respectfully express their individuality through choice of attire. There are further guidelines that will be contained within the AP. These are policy statements that we've added there that guide us in that development of the AP.
So we need to know the difference between policy and AP. The policy is that the trustee, we will set a general rules for the further procedure, and AP belongs to the school operation. And if we don't have these rules, the rules are it's vague, and we cannot make in the school operation practice make it very clear for all the principles.
Through you, Vice Chair Oliver. Again, the guiding principle really does, the general rule speaks to the fact that we need to ensure that student attire doesn't promote hate, discrimination, bias, and allows children to express themselves and their individuality in the way that they choose. And that is the guiding principle that we are focusing on.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Trustee Zhang?
Oh, thank you. So there's another principle. It says the equitable. So we all know that equitable means there's a famous picture, and so a group of kids are watching some game, and some is tall, some is short. So for short children, we provide more resources for the children, so everyone have equal chance. That means equitable means we allocate some resources for students. But this is a student's behavior in school. Actually, they can decide what they do, and the schools and the school board, we don't need to invest any, allocate any resources for this student attire. So what does it mean, equitable here? Thank you.
Through your Vice Chair, Chair Oliver, to Trustee Zhang. Ultimately, equitable here is really speaking to, again, the fact that students have the right to attend school and express themselves as they wish through their attire. And we are specifically targeting the to avoid disproportionate levels of surveillance. I think that that's what we mean by equitable here. And we really know that historically sometimes attire standards would disproportionately impact particular groups. And we're looking to ensure that that does not happen through our policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our speakers list is exhausted, so we have a motion on the floor and we can proceed to vote.
You have to see who the votes are.
Yes. In favor are trustees Amos, Daniele, Bryden, Gray, Baxter, Oliver, and student trustee Ochu, and opposed is trustee Zhang. Sorry, and online, Chair Collard voted in favor. And trustee Ahmed has left the meeting. Thank you. Okay, and now we'll move on to Safe and Accepting School Policy, Report 25068 with Superintendent Fowler. And I'll put the motion on the floor that the Board of Trustees adopt the revised Safe and Accepting Schools Policy and that all prior versions be revoked. And trustees Baxter, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, please.
And Pro Tempore Chair Amos, would you like to? Vice Chair Amos?
Yes, please.
Okay. And Superintendent Fowler, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Vice Chair, Chair Oliver, the report is in front of you and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, we have Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair, I have a question about what I think is an addition, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Most of the language I think has remained the same, just organized differently in a really nice new format that we're using. The reference in the second paragraph of the objective to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, I think that's new in this policy, but correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm just wondering what the impetus was to add that in. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Vice Chair, Chair Oliver, to Trustee Baxter. Just like all of the other policy reviews, we did take it out for extensive feedback and input. And this was input that we did gather from our Indigenous Rights and Education team. And in addition to our Indigenous Education Council, I believe also provided some feedback. So that was the addition and where it came from.
Go ahead.
So just thank you for that. In terms of context, when student protests became common in 2023, this is one of the policies that was brought up, I guess, or highlighted as potentially being violated by the activity. And there were proponents for student protests and rallies that talked about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the right that Canadians have to protest on public property. And that was, correct me if I'm wrong, sorry, Director Ennis, but I believe that was reviewed legally and determined that the board has the right to determine what is appropriate on school grounds, and therefore those rallies and protests were no longer permitted. And I'm just wondering if the addition of the specific mention of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, I know that from what you've described, it wasn't in that context that it was added, but I'm just wondering if that changes in any way the board's positioning around protests and rallies by students or members of the public on property. Thank you.
Through you, Vice Chair Oliver, to Trustee Baxter. You're correct. It was not added specifically for that. I did follow up a little bit because thankfully you'd asked that question sort of last time. And my understanding is that because we have referenced the code and the framework through which we operate, we're kind of already speaking to that piece around competing rights, which I think you're getting at. So really, it's not that there's anything new here that we're trying to introduce by putting in that language. It was really just a suggestion of something that is another piece that guides us in our decision-making processes. Thanks.
Next up is Trustee Zhang and then Chair Collard.
Okay, thank you. So in this policy, still in the guiding principle, actually this guiding principle for me, it reiterates the importance of Ontario Human Rights Code. And this is a law, so everyone in Ontario, we must satisfy our behavior and must satisfy under the Ontario Human Rights Code. And this is a law, this is common sense, everyone must do that. And but after that, so I don't see anything extra to specifically focus on the policy itself, because this is a safe school. There's a safe school, not only just the human rights code we need to follow, and also there's some violence, for example, the violence, and what is the principle we should follow that. And so because I don't think this is give up a general framework for the prevention and for some unsafe behavior, prevention, intervention. So I think that this is not complete and it's not practical to direct further procedures. Thank you.
Through your Vice Chair, Chair Oliver, to Trustee Zhang. So this is an updated template that we're using, and you'll notice if you look back at the previous version of this policy, it didn't have all of the different categories and sections. So for the guiding principles section, I was working from the template, which said that it outlines the guidelines and standards that are to be followed with respect to the implementation of the policy, and the Ontario Human Rights Code does govern that, the way we need to guide our decision making. Once again, similar to the student attire policy, you will find further specifics and directions and guidance for principals on how to be not just reactive but proactive. I'm thinking specifically of our positive school climate admin procedure. So you'll find those specifics I think you're talking about embedded within the AP itself rather than in the policy.
Still, I want to say all the directions and the goals and the standards should be in the standard in the policy, not in the AP. Because once in the AP, and actually this is not trustees. Actually, trustees can do nothing for that.
Did you want to? Okay. All right. And Chair Collard had her hand up. Chair Collard, did you still want to ask or comment on this, or?
It was from the previous vote. That's why I put my hand down.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, thank you very much. I don't see anybody else on the speakers list. We will proceed to vote. Thank you, and that vote carries, but not unanimously. In favor, we have Chair Collard, Trustee Amos, Daniele, Bryden, Gray, Baxter, Oliver, and Student Trustee Ochu, and opposed we have Trustee Zhang. Thank you. And that completes our list of action items. We now go to 5.2, which is future action, and that is Special Education Plan 2025 to 26. Report 25069 with Superintendent Ruddock, and over to you.
Thank you. So as you know, last year we worked through many discussions around the priorities and efficiencies in the budget process and found significant savings through resizing and prioritizing programs and services in special education. And I'm happy to say that this year, the special education plan is largely status quo. So we do not have any changes to our service delivery model. But as always, where we're looking at updating our language and our processes to reflect our current framework. So I'll highlight a few of those changes. In Standard 6, we have identified language around the validity of assessment results that need to be based on or that is impacted by non-novel material. And this is really to respond to an increasing pattern we're seeing with some families preparing for the CCAT and the WISC in the grade 4 screening process, which is perhaps creating some non-valid results through that process. So this, by adding this language, it provides us some flexibility to respond to a situation where the material is not novel, and will manage those on a case-by-case basis. In Standard 6, in well-being, the work of the CYC has been updated to reflect that they are not a registered healthcare practitioner, and so the large part of their work is supporting students in a whole group and small groups in Tier 1 and Tier 2 practices. And in some cases, they can support students in a one-to-one setting, but that would be determined by the Student Wellbeing Department, ensuring that they're not providing clinical therapy. Also in Standard 6, the Wellbeing team has merged the Black Equity and Human Rights team with the Traumatic Events Response team. So over the past few years, the BEAR team has been an important resource in our system, providing support to many students who've experienced harm due to oppression and discrimination. And certainly this team is very proud of the work that they've done over the last years and the number of students that they've served. The TERT team also provides similar supports and will be continuing to support students when they experience racist incidents, as well as during other times of crisis, such as traumatic experiences and death. In addition, the Student Wellbeing team is partnering with external providers, such as ROC, to provide targeted support for students, particularly in the 2S LGBTQ+ community, as well as our students who identify as Black. And then they are continuing to develop partnerships with other community agencies to support other identities. And of course, our student well-being staff who are embedded into our schools are also very skilled at supporting students across all identities. In Standard 12, our staffing levels for educational assistants, we're not anticipating a change. In our self-contained classes, again, it's also largely status quo. We have a slight decrease in our ARC classes. Those are our classes for students with learning disabilities. This year we have 22 classes. Next year we will have 16. And I think this is a real testament to the Tier 3 Wilson intervention that's being delivered in all schools. We have a slight increase to our CPE, which is our classes that support students with mild developmental disabilities. This year we have 38 classes, and next year we will have 40. Our gifted classes are also increasing from 30 to 33, which I've already mentioned. So overall, year over year, we are decreasing by 3 self-contained classes in elementary. This year we have 113, and next year 110. And on the secondary side, we're looking at also a slight decrease to our community pathway program sections, almost the equivalent of 2 FTE. Also in Standard 12, our educational assistants, we've really emphasized that it is a shared support model and that there's an intentional plan to build independence and fade the prompting of our educational assistants. And lastly, in Standard 14, the ministry has done a complete overhaul of SIA funding. So in previous years, we have had to cover a base amount of $800 per item, and then the balance that exceeds $800 can be claimed through SIA. So now there's no base funding, and we can submit claims, or we've been provided base funding rather for any claims under $5,000. So there's no minimum that has to be covered by the department. And then we can submit claims for anything over $5,000 to the ministry for full reimbursement. So this process has really eliminated a lot of red tape and procedural requirements, including the need for prescriptions and psychoeducational reports to recommend assistive technology. Now that can simply be done through a recommendation at school resource team by professional services staff. So again, reducing some of those bureaucratic processes. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Ruddock, for this great summary and update on all the changes and improvements, and I think especially the bureaucratic processes that you're doing away with will be very helpful to our families in accessing and assisting their students and accessing the resources that they need. I've started the speakers list, and Trustee Baxter is first.
Thank you, through the chair. So we have a SEAC meeting tomorrow, and we'll be, we've already had a great discussion at SEAC about the plan, and it was very well received. Good news this year, and tomorrow will be the vote to recommend to the board to accept it. Since the SEAC meeting, I actually had a question about CYC, so I thought I would just ask you now, the child and youth counselors. So given that they're a non-regulated professional in our schools, who are they supervised by? Are they directly supervised by a regulated professional? Thank you.
That's a great question, and I'll have Superintendent Barnes respond to that.
Yeah, through you, Chair, Trustee Baxter. Yes, we have 4 professional managers in the Student Wellbeing Department, and 2 professional managers oversee the work of CYCs. The scope of their work is focuses on social, emotional work, as been mentioned, and group work and class-wide, so that's their supervisor.
Sorry, thank you. You're behind me, so it's awkward. And is that, are the supervisors regulated professionals?
Yeah, they do have regulation. There's a different agreement with that staff. Of course, we do also have social workers in both elementary and secondary schools, and direct supervisors and manager of social workers for that as well.
Okay, and Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, through the chair. Year over year in special education, in the past number of years, the funding hasn't been there to support all of the needs, and we have moved funds from other spots in our board budget to supplement and help with the needs of the spec ed. Is this year any different? I kept hearing that programs were shrinking a little bit, or that there were efficiencies and that it's going to be better. I want to hear, have we got the funding that fully supports the plan that you have presented here tonight that has yet to be supported by SEAC? want to know where we're at with that. My experience as a trustee of long years has been every fall I listen to principals talk about there's never enough EAs and there's never enough this. And so I'm just curious to know that if this is all being covered, do we have a contingency fund for in that fall when we learn that certain students have moved in that need that extra support and we need additional staff to cover that? So do we have a buffer? Are we fully funded? Is there magic happening in the funding that we're receiving now that for once it's going to all be covered?
Oh, thanks for making me laugh. And you might recall that in the budget process last year, we started out with about a $17 million funding gap in the funding for special education and what we offer. And through the efficiencies and the work that was done last year, we reduced that to a $7.5 million funding gap. And I'm going to have Superintendent Nagoy speak about what it's looking like today.
I don't know if it's laughing or crying, but in short, no, we are not fully funded in terms of special education. However, the plan that is before you is part of the budget, so it's within the budget components. We're still working on everything, and we're going to be, I'll speak a little bit more at the next item as well as bringing it to the committee next week. So, you know, in short, it's still underfunded. We expect that it's going to be more like 11 million underfunded next year. So still in a better shape than we were before the changes in 24-25. However, the special education plan and the budget are aligned in terms of what we're proposing for next year, if that helps.
Thank you. Just a follow-up comment. I think the public are very much getting in tune because of the recent number of articles that have been appearing in the newspapers with regards to the way our school system is funded right now and the underfunding that is right across the province. And I think it was important to just hear those words once again, that special education is underfunded, because we have parents and students who let's just talk about the students. Their needs are great and ever growing, and it's so very important that it be funded at the rate that really covers the needs that we have. But once again, though we can make it work, it's at the expense of other things, right? That we're moving money in, and albeit very, very responsibly so and very importantly so, but let's not kid ourselves, we're still underfunded. And I think that continues to be likely the experience right across the province. So thank you for those comments.
Trustee Bryden.
Thank you. And as has been suggested here, we did make cuts last year. We increased class sizes to balance the budget in our special education classes specifically. I have heard concerns from parents that those larger classes are more challenging for some of the students, and I would love to hear if staff have a sense of what the impact of those increased class sizes has been over the last year.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Trustee Bredden. I think certainly they're feeling the impact of a larger class size. We are resourcing our CPE classrooms, our communication programs with more EAs to support the increase in the number of students. But classes like our art class, where it is one educator to 10 students, where it was formerly one educator to 8 students, while it's only a 2-student increase, they are feeling the impact. But I think it was a responsible approach because we are funded at 16-1 in those classes. So we do still recognize and respond to the work of the educator in the room by attempting to keep those classes smaller than the funding allows.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Superintendent Ruddock, for all that you and your team do to support special education in our board and all the students with their very diverse, vast range of special education needs. And you do that with the constraints of the insufficient budget that we are provided with. So gratitude to you. This report, with the recommendation to approve the HDSB special education plan for the upcoming year, will be coming to the June 17th board meeting for a vote. No. Sorry, it will come when the budget is approved. The budget has to be approved first, then we will be voting on this report because it's contingent on that. Thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to item 6, and that's communication to the board. And we have 2 items for information. The first is 2025-26 budget update, education funding announcement, report 25070 with Superintendent Nagoy.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Oliver, to all trustees. As you are aware, the provincial education funding has been released on May 23rd, so it's a little bit late in the process, considering that we only have a few weeks until we should have an approved budget. So maybe I'll start there just in terms of timelines and what this means for us. We have to push a few of the timelines. We have to push a few of the timelines in order to respond to the delay in funding. What we are proposing right now is that we come back on the 11th to the Committee of the Whole to provide you a draft of where we expect to be, finalize a draft budget for June the 17th, and I think looking at a couple of options to approve the budget, one being June 20th and a backup either July 7th or 8th. We do have approval from the ministry to extend our approval into July 11th as a result of those dates. So it will all be contingent on how fast we can wrap everything up. We are trying to still stay within that end of June initial timeline. So with that, I just wanted to highlight a few things. Currently, as I mentioned, we've only had the funding for about I guess less than 2 weeks, and we're putting everything through our forms, which changes the original numbers that have been released by the ministry. On a provincial level, there are a few changes to the education funding, namely it contains some increases as it relates to compensation that have been centrally negotiated, as well as continuing the phasing of the 2021 census data that impacts some of our language grants, demographic needs, as well as safe and accepting schools and special education. A couple of good news items are increased student transportation funding for the province. That for our board increased our funding by $2 million, and that puts us almost at that budget neutral position between our expenses in that area and the funding for student transportation. There's also increased funding for temporary accommodations. That's for our portables that allow for growth areas. So that's an increase of about 75% in that category, but it is distributed differently. It's based on a 3-year average of usage of portables and so forth. But for our board, that also increased our funding by about $700,000. That is the good news. On the other flip side, we do have a declining enrollment. So we've updated our enrollment numbers actually even since we've released this report. We're looking at approximately 1,000 less students year over year. That has a significant impact on our funding, a significant reduction. And that reduction is seen in all areas of the funding. Not just the classroom, but the wraparound supports, as well as even the school operation allocation. Even though we are opening a new school, we have the same square footage, the same yards to maintain, the same parking lots to remove snow and so forth. A portion of that is impacted by declining enrollment and therefore a loss of funding. So we are in a deficit position for 25-26. We are still working through the numbers. We're expecting it will be a compliant deficit position. Given the timing of staffing timelines and when we have all the information to make certain changes, we are not proposing significant changes from what you've seen currently. However, that will mean that for the journey for 26-27, we will be looking again at potentially a structural deficit that we will have to review all the areas of the budget and make some difficult decision for the following year. I think those are the highlights I wanted to mention. I'd be happy to take any questions, and we'll have more information as we finish the data review for next week's Committee of the Whole.
Any questions for Trustee Superintendent Nagoy? Okay, Trustee Amos.
Thank you. Through you. So Superintendent Nagoy, even though we are growing in certain areas of the board, our population is decreasing more in other areas of the board that aren't increasing. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct. There is a couple of factors where you have large graduating classes, but the entry-level classes are few. Even though there's more population in some areas, there's fewer school-aged children. So that is one of the main areas. So we are declining in both panels for next year and in the next 3 to 4 years as well.
So does that mean that at some point, if the government ever takes the moratorium off, we're going to have to look at potentially closing some schools or reallocating the way things are? Yes?
There will be some, and I would think some elementary schools that we would be looking at, but that would be a few years out.
So but I heard you say for 4 years. Okay, so that's not a good news. And even though we're in a declining position, we're still not getting funded totally for some of the areas that we have not had, like the EI and Spec Ed and transportation, and that they're still not getting complete funding for those areas, right?
Thank you for that question. Actually, yes, I wanted to mention that. So the challenges that do remain, the transportation is not one of them. That is one of the good news stories for transportation funding. But the challenges that remain, and they're significant, are the supply costs, the funding for supply costs to cover absenteeism. It's over a $10 million gap in terms of funding and the actual cost that we have in practice, and that is something that is province-wide. It isn't a local concern or challenge. And the second biggest one is not covering the federally mandated enhancement to CPP, to statutory benefits, which again, that's also, $5 to $7 million range in terms of that. So those are two very main concern areas, and they have to come and be covered from somewhere else. That's where we're having these challenges in terms of how do we allocate that funding. And when we are speaking about special education being underfunded, these costs impact some of that gap as well, because it is proportionately attributed to that area as well.
So I recently read an article that the Ontario Public School Board Association put out that basically said that our funding is not keeping up with the cost of living. So therefore, we're actually back about 2019 funding, and that the government, even though they're saying they're putting out record numbers for funding in education, it's actually still not covering what we need. Because of some of the gaps which you've already mentioned, but also the actual cost of living. That's correct?
That is correct. And that refers mainly to the areas that are non-compensation related, because those are tied to collective agreements, centrally negotiated. But the areas of learning resources and technology and everything that is, contractual services, goods and services that we have to procure, all of those areas have not kept up with inflation.
That's really too bad that the government doesn't really understand how to fund us. Thank you.
Next on the list is Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to confirm, did you mention that we may be having a compliant deficit? Are we allowed to run a deficit this year? Or, sorry, is this not, it sounds really loud to me. Are we allowed to have a deficit this year?
Great question. We are required by regulation to balance the budget. If we're not balancing the budget, even by $1, we do require not just board approval, but the approval from the ministry. I have already had some conversations with the ministry staff to give them the heads up in terms of where we are preliminarily. And at this point in time, a compliant deficit can be up to about $8.5 or $9 million. So when I say compliant deficit, it is still a large deficit that we expect. So we will need approval and a plan to eliminate it next year.
And then I had another question about salaries. So as I understand it, salaries are centrally negotiated and therefore fully funded. However, the EI and CPP obligations of the employer are not fully funded. And I'm just wondering why, or I know I'm not asking you that question, but has the ministry given any indication as to why they would fully fund all aspects of compensation salaries, but not that part of it? Has there ever been a question and answer provided? Thank you.
Thank you. Another excellent question. We have been communicating that as a huge concern for the whole sector. The ministry staff are aware, and I know the ministry has been putting forward that information to the decision makers, the Treasury Board. The decisions happen at the Treasury Board, so I couldn't tell you why some recommendations get approved or not, but that was not one of the one that was approved, and it wasn't for the lack of not being aware of the challenges.
Thank you. Trustee Bryden.
Thank you. First question is about the declining enrollment adjustment. It appears that we have our per pupil funding is increasing higher than the provincial average, and it's attributed to that, but that's temporary. Is that a 1-year funding amount, or what does that entail?
Thank you for the question. It is a 2-year sort of declining ratio type of funding, with the biggest chunk being the year 1 and then just 25% year 2. But the other thing about the provincial average in the projection, some of the factors behind it is not just the declining enrollment, but some ratios that are averaged for the province. So once we put our information in, is actually lower than what is on there. So I just wanted to mention that some of those cannot be looked at as that's what our per pupil funding will end up being once we put it through the forms and all of our information.
Thank you. That might start to speak to the second question, which was a little bit later. There seems to be a higher negative impact to funding as a result of enrollment decline than the offsetting reduction in staffing proposed to date. Additional savings measures will be required. What I was trying to square those two facts of our given the enrollment decline, our funding is going down, but our number of students is going down. When we look at this more, so to speak, if we're seeing an above average increase, but what I'm hearing is that above average per pupil funding increase might be a mirage, and that when we get updated pupil numbers, we might not have that at all. And then the kind of the second question is to what extent does our to what extent do we lose efficiency, so to speak, as we are losing staff, losing students, losing staff? We are to what extent does our per pupil cost of operation go up without our per pupil revenue going up?
Thank you for the question. So a couple of things. The per pupil cost when it comes to classroom staffing, we have a sufficient size that we are still efficient in terms of staffing for the class size that we are funded for. So that's not where the concern is. We still maintain that efficiency. We are, however, losing, for example, funding in the school operations funding allocation. We're opening a new school. We have the same classroom square footage in the region, same playgrounds and sites, everything, all the costs are pretty much the same plus an additional site, but our funding is at par or a little bit less than last year. And that component is based on enrollment. It's very difficult to track because the formula contained is not really broken down that way, but a portion of it is based on enrollment. So that's where we would be not as efficient. The cost per student to maintain the schools will be higher as we lose students. But the staffing classroom that's proportionate to class size ratio remains at this point efficient. And it's the wraparound supports that support the classroom that are also being, all of that funding is reduced. So everything will have to be reviewed for next year.
Okay, thank you. And anybody else with any other questions or comments for Superintendent Nagoy? Seeing none, thank you for this update. We appreciate that you have a lot of work ahead of you to analyze all the information you'll be receiving and have received from the Ministry of Education, and to reconcile that and all the allotments that are being made against student needs. So we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. And our second item for information is the 2024 Long-Term Accommodation Plan Proposed Projects Feedback Process Update Report 25071 with General Manager Thibault.
Through Madam Chair to trustees, very quickly. So we're pulling back on the feedback survey that we were going to release a couple weeks ago. Upon further reflection, we noticed that there were a number of surveys that were out. We were coming up to the end of the school year, so we figured, you know what, let's step off the gas a little bit. And what we'll do is, we can announce as part of the end of year now. School release or whatnot that the projects are available for review, and that will be coming back in the fall to seek formal consultation on this. And that way, as part of the overall package, we'll be bringing forward approvals in November for the project priority list, and along with that should be the release of the online LTAP. So we've adjusted our schedule a little bit just so we can get a little bit more meaningful consultation with our communities and make sure that no one gets too tired of all the end of year activities that are taking place. So spreading it out a bit. Happy to take any questions, both on this or if there's anything else that's come up as part of your review of the priority projects.
Thank you very much. And Trustee Daniele, over to you.
Thank you. I wanted to say how much I love the LTAP Planning Initiative summary table that you sent to us. It lays everything out in such a beautifully clear, concise way. But I note that there is a section for trustee comments, and I was just wondering, what sort of comments are you looking for from us in that section?
Through Madam Chair to Trustee Daniele, for those things, it would be whether you believe the scope that we're proposing or the intent as to why we're initiating that particular action. is reflective of what's happening in that community. It might also be an opportunity for us to, or for you to identify things that we're maybe not aware of, so we can add to that scope, reduce that scope, maybe see if it's not as much of an interest, or if within those varying priority projects that have been identified, if there are ones that you feel aren't present or need to be brought forward, it gives you an opportunity to kind of let us know what's happening on the ground and identifying it for us as part of our overall review. So it really, I'm looking for both, like we do with the community, but also what you're hearing from your constituents, as well as what you may be hearing from school administrators or what have you, of things that we may not be aware of. So we don't know what we don't know. So if you can supplement that, that's always fantastic.
I'm not seeing anybody else on the speakers list. Thank you very much for this report and update, and thanks for all the great work on this. And now we are up to Director's Report with Director Ennis.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Oliver. I will begin by saying that I've unfortunately had to go to Heritage Glen twice in the last maybe 5 to 6 weeks because we've lost a student. And so I know the staff and students there and the entire community are hurting. And so our prayers and our thoughts are with them. And I'd ask you to join me in a moment of silence for Carter Brown, our student from Heritage Glen who passed away recently. He'll be fondly remembered by all his classmates and the staff at the school. Thank you so much. I begin the news items with really an embarrassment of riches. I had the pleasure of going to the Samsung headquarters last week. I was invited to see the national finals for the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition. And out of the 4 finalists, HDSB had 2 from across the country. And so we were just in such anticipation. The third place winner was announced. It was an HDSB class from Aldershot. And then the second place winner was from Calgary. And then, of course, there were two teams that remain, and one either was from HDSB and another school board. And of course, we took first place. And so we won both first and third place in the national competition. And of course, Elsie McGill and Aldershot, we want to say congratulations to those students and staff for representing HDSB so well. Also, the HDSB won several gold medals at the Ontario Skills Competition and the Skills National Competition. So students from schools right across the board participated, and in total, our elementary students earned 27 gold medals, silver and bronze awards in 13 various technological challenges. And so they're all moving on to national competition, where the 6 secondary school students won 3 gold medals, 2 silver and 1 bronze in the national skills competition. And I know that we are, awaiting the results of our students who have attended the BASIF Fair in the Canada-wide BASIF Science Fair. And we won first, second, and third best in fair. Those were all from the Halton District School Board. And I know that we are waiting with bated breath when I think in June 7th, the announcement will be for the national competition winners. And I'm absolutely positive that once again, the Halton District School Board will take some top honors. So wait for that report to come through. We also had, of course, the celebration of student excellence, which we honored many students from across the board from all our schools, and many of you were there. It was a beautiful evening celebrated by students and families. Our students from Glen Williams, of course, you've heard so much about them. They met the Prime Minister who visited the Hills. I'm sure Trustee Gray was very pleased and honored. And they had the opportunity to go to Parliament Hill. And you may have seen some of the pictures in the news of our students meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney. And of course, we think that we have some future leaders and prime ministers in the midst there, coming from the hills. We also have, if you have not been to the special athletics track meet, June 13th, mark your calendars. It is always a wonderful, wonderful time where students and families and staff come out and celebrate our students. So please, we look forward to that. An event that is an annual treat is the return of Mother Duck to the New Street. We have a courtyard at New Street, and every year a duck gets into the courtyard, flies in, lays eggs, they hatch, and then there's a march through the school, because that's the only way they could get out. There's a march through the school, and it's just a beautiful display of kindness. And so we look forward to that. And many of the students and staff always look forward to that annual event. Of course, we are HDSB. This latest profile was from our Carlos, our head caretaker here at the board office. We ask you to check that out, along with Mobin and Grace, our HDSB secondary students, with authentic and inspiring stories. This is a campaign that I know our communication and engagement team is working on. We are HDSB, telling our stories so that those in our community can see all of the great staff and students who represent us so well. We have, of course, the vaping sessions that were held for parents and guardians, May 27th to June the 3rd, across the Halton region, and the Directors Panel series, which took place. The latest one was on Indigenous rights and education, a shared responsibility, in which we had our Indigenous staff on the Directors Panel and shared such great insights into how we need to move forward with our calls to actions in supporting truth and reconciliation. And of course, I ask you to join me in please, as we announced that Jenny Petco is now the Associate Director for the upcoming school year. And Jenny will be joining the Director's office, and we look forward to her working with us as we also celebrate the retirement of Associate Director Salmini, and we welcome Jenny to continue the great work around the multi-year strategic plan into next year and moving forward. And that is my report for tonight.
Thank you very much for that great report. Lots of achievements in our school board. And Trustee Amos would like to say something.
Thank you. I just want to say, Director Innes, that your report is an example of why this board is one of the best boards in the province and in Canada. We have so much to be proud of. We have so many awesome staff and students, and anybody should be proud to be at this board. And I know people are clamoring to come, when I hear that we're going into a bit of a deficit in students, I think we need to market ourselves maybe a little better, just to show how great we are, because we are. And your report is just a great example of what goes on. And so I would like to ask at some point that if you could find a way to market us better so we can maybe share in Halton so that students know that this is the place to be.
I want to thank you for that, Trustee Amos. I know that Manager Francie and her team are working diligently on that, and they have certainly highlighted and illuminated all of these stories that I've shared with you, and we're going to continue to do more of that. We're looking forward to some additional personnel within the Communication and Engagement Department focusing on marketing so that we can tell these great stories, because everybody needs to know what a great board we are, because we absolutely produce some of the finest students that this country has. And so we take great pride in that, and we want everybody to know that.
Thank you very much, and hearty congratulations to Superintendent Petco on your new post as Associate Director with our school board once Associate Director Salmini is retired, and we will miss you. Thank you. Okay, we will leave the communications from the chair until our June 17th meeting, and we'll proceed to committee updates, starting with statutory committees, and that's Parental Involvement Committee with Trustee Zhang.
Okay. In May, the Parent Involvement Committee had a short meeting. In this meeting, the committee discussed the next PIC conference in November. Because this year we have two conferences, we invite the trustees and the community members to join us as a presenter to host a workshop. So yeah, so if our community members or trustees have any ideas to do the presentation, please contact us. Thank you.
Any questions for Trustee Zhang? Not seeing any, we'll move on to update from Special Education Advisory Committee, and that's Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair, I don't think I have anything more to add than we discussed already. Tomorrow is the last SEAC meeting of this school year, I think. The last meeting was fantastic, great engagement and input from committee members. And it was very clear if you watched the meeting that staff heard the input that came from committee members and incorporated into the special education plan, which was very much appreciated. So it's a pleasure to be on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Baxter. And are there any questions with respect to that update? We'll proceed to staff-led committees, and that's accessibility again with Trustee Baxter.
Thank you again through the chair. The last accessibility committee meeting was on May 22nd. It was in person at, I believe it's our newest school in Milton, which was a great opportunity to see how the new schools are designed and built to incorporate accessibility for all students. It's a beautiful big school. We also had a presentation at that meeting from special education staff on the results of a consultation that they conducted to gain insights from school staff on how school spaces serve students with special education needs, which was a fantastic presentation. I think if any trustees are interested, I have a copy of it that I can share with you. There were a lot of really interesting things that were in there about things that are in schools that staff are appreciating and finding are helpful for students with special education needs, and also challenges. One thing that came up that I thought was notable was a challenge in schools where air conditioning is not available, and the inability to regulate temperature, and how that has a detrimental effect on on all occupants of the building, I'm sure, but specifically on students with special education needs. And I don't think that's something that we've really talked about at this table, how the upgrading that needs to be done to schools has a greater effect than just comfort for the average occupant of the building, but also does affect the inclusion efforts that we're making around special education. The other insight that I thought was interesting, and I think it's one of the first things I noticed when I visited a school with Trustee Gray at the beginning of my term, a school that was doing a boundary review, and learned about students with special education needs who come with equipment that is necessary to support their inclusion in our schools, and that the accommodation for storage and placement of that equipment is not necessarily there in the design of schools and the way that the schools are populated. So that was another thing that staff had highlighted, is having that ability to store and have equipment accessible for students. So certainly some things, I will share that presentation with all trustees, but I think some things that could inform our discussions going forward, given that we're a board that highly values inclusion and accessibility. I think that was it. Thank you. That was our last meeting of the school year, so we meet again in the next school year. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will receive an update from the Environmental Leadership and Sustainability Committee through the Trustee Rocha at our upcoming June 17th meeting. And now on to update on Human Rights Equity Advisory Committee with Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair. So we've just had a report from the Human Rights and Equity Advisory Committee from Superintendent Petco. the last meeting, I unfortunately wasn't able to be present for it, but the minutes are nicely shared with all committee members, so I can share that there was a review of that report that was done at committee, so they were aware of the contents of it. The only thing I would just highlight is just a reiteration of something in the report, is that there may be spaces on that committee for new members, and that call will go out in August. So for community members to be aware that there may be an opportunity to join that great committee. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, and on to Mental Health Strategy Advisory Committee, and I'll provide an update. The Mental Health Action Strategy Plan is being developed currently, and there's a working committee that is in the process of developing the draft version of the strategy. Input will be sought from committee members, and the strategies will be finalized and posted publicly on the board website by June 30th, as is required by the ministry. And that's all I have. And now we'll move on to OPSPA update for public session.
Yes, thank you very much. As everyone knows, the OPSPA AGM is coming up June 12 to 14. And at the AGM, there will be an election for first vice president. And there are several individuals across the province that are interested in running. And a few of those individuals have sent to me a resume. And I have made the commitment to those individuals to share that resume among all of our trustees, with the thought that all of us would have a chance to weigh in on who we might want to support in that position of first vice president. However, because not all of the candidates were able to share information and presentations will be made at the actual AGM, in consultation with Trustee Daniele, we thought that it might be more appropriate if the 4 trustees, we're aware of 4 anyway so far that are attending, that the 4 trustees in attendance would have a chance to consult with one another after the presentations of all of the candidates being considered for first vice president, and that if it is the will of this group, that the decision would be made by the 4 trustees who are present, listening to all of the speeches, and therefore being able to vote on behalf of all of us here at the table. I'm open to any questions, and I look to Trustee Daniele for any further comment, but we just felt that we would have all of the knowledge and all of the information instead of piecemeal, and would be able then to make a better decision on behalf of our board.
Thank you. It really is the responsibility of your OPSPA board member to be your voting delegate. Every board does it differently. What we have traditionally done in Halton is that the people that are in attendance at the AGM and able to hear all of the speeches and meet with the candidates, and then provide a consultation to the OPSPA voting member. But ultimately it does come down to Jean, but it is usually done as a consensus piece with the trustees in attendance. So hopefully you would be, is anybody going to the AGM? Robbie? Joanna? Okay, so I think there'll be 6 of us.
6 of us.
I believe so. So we'll have to be careful, we'll have quorum. So that would be good. Hopefully that you will be there. I believe the election is on the Friday afternoon. For the other pieces of the AGM, I would note that there is a trivia on Thursday night, a very hotly contested trivia tournament. There is a dinner on the Friday night, and on the Saturday it is a working lunch for the Central West Regional Trustees. There will be no election for the regional chair this year, as I have been acclaimed, but there will be elections for the vice chair as well as the 2 work teams, policy and development and education program teams, and any trustee can sit on those teams. So if anyone was interested in putting their name forward, even if they're not attending the AGM or they wanted more information, please let me know.
Thank you very much for that update. And now on to trustee questions of clarification for this tonight's agenda. Trustee Zhang.
Oh, thank you. So Because every year, these years, when we discuss the budget, there's one item is a very important one. Important aspect is the enrollment of students. I noticed last year there was decline, and this year another time. And do we? I wonder, have we done any research about why there's a decline of the enrollment? Does it reflect the population increase or demographic? Because these years in Halton region, the population increase is quickly, and especially in Milton and in Oakville. In Burlington is a very stable population, but in the next 10 years, even in Burlington, population increase will be around 12%. So we need to plan for the future. If we know why enrollment is declining, so we can prepare for the future, better preparing. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Director Annis?
Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Associate Director Salmini. And Manager Thibault, if you wouldn't mind stepping to the presentation desk for me as well, just to perhaps give some broader view on projections and Superintendent, Associate Director Salmini.
Thank you. So through the chair to Trustee Zhang, so I'll start and then I'll send it over to you. I am bringing a report at the next board meeting around the work that we've done to ask those questions. The research department has surveyed exiting students between grade 8 and grade 9, so we can bring some of that data, and also highlights of the plan that we've put in place moving forward to try to support retention and growth and recruitment in our board. In terms of broader comments around enrollment, I'll pass it over to General Manager Thibault.
Through Madam Chair, to Trustee Zhang, I'd say Superintendent Nguyen alluded to it earlier with what is happening. Effectively, the larger, what we're witnessing as a board right now are a few things. One is that the grades that are entering are not as large as the grades that are graduating. So at the elementary panel, what we're seeing is that our JK admissions aren't as high as the graduating grade 8. So immediately right there, overall in your elementary enrollment, you're going to see an immediate drop because we're not having the exiting grade being replaced by an equivalent population in the entrance grade, or not as high. The other thing we're witnessing, and that's the same thing for secondary as well, so that's where we're seeing these large decreases in secondary enrollment. It's not necessarily strictly just our retention, it's also with regards to our graduating grade 12 classes are much larger than what's entering into grade 9. So that's one of the key things that are happening as well. So we're kind of seeing the last of the two larger grade 12 cohorts exiting the system. That's why we're seeing those like pretty large steps in terms of overall decreases year over year. The second component to this too, and where we're still seeing growth in certain areas, we're still a very healthy board in terms of overall utilization, but what we're seeing in a lot of our school communities now as well is that we've passed the peak enrollment of many of our communities. So that means kind of like the top end of the enrollment where we're now seeing it somewhat decline. And that doesn't mean we have empty pupil places. It just means that we don't have 18 portables on site. We might now be going down to 10, 11, 6, 8 portables, a lot fewer on site. So whereas in the past we've had the Miltons and the North Oakvilles and the newer areas in Oakville kind of offset the declines that we're seeing in the more aging or stable areas, now everything's kind of stabilizing overall. So we're not seeing that offsetting or that growth outpace the stabilization and declines. So now we have fewer growth areas and we have areas that are just stabilizing. So that's why we're not seeing any growth, and really it's a decline again because we're seeing these smaller cohorts coming in. Just as an example, we're probably going to be releasing upwards of 30 portables out of the system now at the elementary panel, strictly because of the fact that that peak is kind of past. They're graduating, they're going into the secondary panel, and we're not seeing as many kids come in. So that's another component of it. And last but not least is also immigration. This board, especially at the secondary panel, is one where we see a lot of increases overall in our enrollment as to what we're getting outside of the system. And what we've noticed over the last couple of years is that we're not seeing that same level. especially with new immigration practices from the federal government and what have you. So that's another challenge that we're not seeing as much of an intake there as well. So if you put all three of those compounding issues together, that's why we're seeing these losses happening so quickly. It's not necessarily a performance thing entirely. I would say that a lot of it's just the demographics that are finally stabilizing. With all that said, we do have some significant areas of growth that are coming. We have Georgetown, which is going to finally see its areas of expansion start up. And we do have Milton too, that's got 2 new secondary plans that are going to be moving ahead, and a lot of densification within the city of Burlington. And Oakville will still have its secondary plan of North Oakville. But what I will say is that seeing now that the majority of the region has been built out, and now we're just in these different pockets, I don't think we're going to be seeing as much of this growth outpace overall declines. So I think it's just our region stabilizing overall. So we're not going to see the same benefits we have over the last 10 years. I might be wrong. Things might change again, but current trends are showing that we're evening out.
Thank you for that. Is that good?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. If the next time we can see the data, will be better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And finally, on to trustee news. Trustees, is there anything you'd like to share? Okay, I will put myself on the list. In keeping with the Take Your MPP to School initiative, I took MPP Stephen Crawford for a visit of Pilgrimwood Public School and MPP Effie Triantafilopoulos for a visit of Captain R. Wilson Public School. And I want to thank staff and students of these schools for super interesting and thoughtfully planned out visits. And I thank Superintendents McIntosh and Petcott for accompanying me, Petco, who accompanied me on these visits to their respective schools. We were able to showcase the wonderful learnings and work that takes place not only at Pilgrimwood and Captain R. Wilson, but also across the entire district. And these visits provided us with the opportunity to discuss various challenges that face these 2 public schools, as well as all schools in general. And I plan to continue to have these discussions with our MPPs as I continue to advocate for HDSB students and staff. Okay, I see Jean's on the list.
Thank you very much. And just to continue your story about MPPs and so on and so forth, I had the pleasure of having MPP Joseph Rosinski attend Acton District School with me to have a great tour with Principal Pfeiffer, and some great learning took place for him. Then we traveled over to Limehouse, which is always an interesting visit, and had some great information shared there. We actually witnessed a very interesting concept to me where the entire school population was out on the playing fields, each child sitting unto themselves alone, making a recording in a reflection journal, and they were to be embracing the environment around them. And so many of the students were looking up, and it was a beautiful day, and looking around them, and looking into the forest beyond, and so a great experience there. Then, just in addition to that, though, I also had the chance to take Mayor Lawler and 3 counselors through Georgetown District High School to look at their skilled trades area, and to take a tour of their tiny house that they've built that's just about ready to be moved to a community up north. I bring this forward because I think it's really important that we not only embrace that relationship and build it with our MPPs, but also with our own district councils and mayors. And I think it's wonderful. And what happened in ours was magical, because as the counselors toured and talked to teachers in the skilled trades, there were connections being made where counselors were saying, well, we've got a new business coming into town, and it's possible to me that they would want to have some of your students come and do co-op placements. And there was a synergy that came out of having the connection with people that are in your area and know the growth and know the changes that are happening and how they could connect those changes with the school system. So very, very happy with that tour. And I thought it possibly will pay great dividends in the future for Georgetown District High School as they reach out and make connections with those that were recommended to them by the counselors and by the mayor. So it was a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Trustee Gray. And before we adjourn our meeting, I would like to share a message with the HDSB community. As we are at the start of June, this is an exciting and busy time for our students and staff. This week, we're celebrating HDSB staff from across all employee groups who are retiring, and this includes our Associate Director. We would like to express our deep gratitude for their years of service and dedication to teaching, supporting, coaching, and mentoring our students at every point along their academic journey and personal growth and development. Our primary students are completing their curriculum learning for the year, putting final touches on their artwork to bring home to their families, participating in end-of-year assemblies and school celebrations. The grade 8s are looking forward to their grade 8 graduations and making transition to high school. Our secondary students are busy with their final assignments and exam preparations, while secondary school graduates have been enjoying their prom festivities and celebrating their accomplishments with the much anticipated commencements while looking ahead to their next endeavors. And so on behalf of the trustees, I would like to wish all students and staff a wonderful, successful, and fun-filled final month of the school year. And so now that our agenda is complete, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you and good night.
Yes, so if trustees can please stay back for about 20 minutes-ish, we'll do some e-scribe review. Of course, yes, yeah, for sure. Only trustees.